Welcome to Why I Quit, a show that covers real people quitting their 9-to-5 jobs in search of something different. Listen to inspiring conversations where we dive deep into the stories of why people quit their jobs, what were the hardest parts, where are they now, and any advice for people following the same path. We are so excited to introduce Barb Otis as this week's guest on Why I Quit. Listen as Barb discusses her career in organizational development to help make the workplace a better place for employees. Learn how she discusses her personal experiences, learning why her coworkers quit, and going through the process of quitting herself. Get inspired hearing how she wrote a book to help both employees and managers called 101 Ways to Lose a Great Employee. Hey, Barb, thanks so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to hear your story, and I'd love to start with kind of going back into your education background a little bit and how that transitioned into your first job.
Yeah, so my education, I have an undergraduate in business management and I have a master's in organizational development. I am a professional organizational development practitioner, so I oversee a lot of leadership development types of programs and organizations, or I do a lot of mediation between work groups and people that don't get along. That's been my career. Also have extended education, attending the Harvard Kennedy School in public sector work and leadership development. So that's been a real focus of mine.
Nice. And so I guess as you started your career, did you have an expectation of, the type of work that you were going to be doing, like this type of work that you're doing now? Was that, always the plan, or did you stumble into that, or what did that look like?
I would say I am probably one of the most fortunate people in terms of I got a master's in organizational development and I was able to start working in organizational development right away. And I say I'm fortunate that way because I think a lot of people get advanced degrees and they don't get to work in the field per se that they got their advanced degree in. So I feel very fortunate. It's a passion of mine. I have worked in a lot of horrible places, I'm sad to say, that I wanted to make better, and I wanted to make organizations better places for people to come to work. I wrote a book called 101 Ways to Lose a Great Employee, and the bubble on it is I quit. And so people started using the book to quit their jobs, actually. I didn't write it for that purpose. I was writing it to retain people, for managers to read and maybe say, oh, I'm behaving that way, I should change my behavior. But it's so interesting that people who've purchased the book have used it to quit their job, dog-earing the pages that their managers, the poor behavior they're exhibiting, and sort of sending a message that way. I got a review on Amazon that said epic way to quit your job. And I was, I was like, well, it's being utilized in a different way. But this whole thing about how people have transitioned and the way we work since COVID, since the pandemic, has been really fascinating.
Yeah, I would love to get into that. I think, before we do, I definitely love to kind of get into, how you, came to the point where you wanted to write a book. And then, what was that process like for you? And like, what was it that made you like end up actually like making the leap to write that?
Right. So, as I mentioned, I've been doing organizational development work for quite some time. And, there's always that person in an organization that people feel they can go talk to, or, they stop by your office just to sit down and have a chat about what's going on for them. I was kind of always that person in organizations. And then when I formally stepped into the role as the organizational development person, I got requested to do a lot of coaching. And one of the things was that people came to me a lot right before they were going to quit their job to talk about why they were quitting. So I started just keeping a record of why people were quitting their job. What was the reason that was driving people away throughout various organizations I worked in? And often it was about the simple things. It was that maybe their direct supervisor didn't say good morning to them. They didn't feel seen or heard. It wasn't like a big event that had to happen. It was the daily interactions is what was driving people away from their jobs. One day in one organization I was working in, I got a request from the CEO that said, "Hey, I need you to go and coach this director. They're having a lot of problems." And I went to a bookstore because I was thinking, I need to find a book for this person that they can read. I'm looking around, and finally I threw up my hands. I said, I just need to find a book that says, stop. If you're doing this, stop, because you're going to lose good people. Why doesn't that book exist? And my husband was standing next to me and he said, if you can't find it, why don't you create it? So that's what I did. And the book, my British friends tell me it's very cheeky. It is written kind of in a sarcastic, kind of humorous way. And that was what the focus groups, when I had focus groups about which way to write it, that's the way that it resonated with people. So I kept it that way, but it's certainly not, it wasn't in my comfort zone to write that way. I am a professional business person and I write, strategy and approaches for big projects. So this was kind of different for me. And, anytime you do something creative, you're kind of sticking your neck out there to get highly criticized. And I've had people who've loved it and I've had people who thought, oh, this is not worthy at all for me to read. There's an audience, I would say, for everything that we do. And I was taking a leadership program, and one of the challenges was that the instructor said everybody has a story to tell, so everybody should write a book at least once in their lifetime. So I did it. I just dusted all the reasons why people quit off and put them in a book.
Curious, had you ever written a book before? And then what was the process like for you in terms of like the learning curve of being able to do it? And then like how long did that take you?
Yeah, no, I had never written a book before. I was a big journaler, somebody who wrote in a journal constantly. And I like people, so I connect a lot with people. And it was just sort of, it felt kind of natural. I had been keeping this list for quite some time. And the hardest part was, how am I going to put those thoughts, what I've captured, down on paper? What was the format going to be? So I have to say, I reached out to professionals. I got myself an editor who helped edit the book, and I got a graphic designer to help me design how to put this together exactly. And then I made the decision to self-publish because I wanted total control over the work. And it's very easy to self-publish these days. It used to be very difficult when you wrote a book that you had to market it, right, to these big publishing organizations. And now that's just not the case. What's so great is if you have a creative idea and you want to write a book, you can do that very easily now, very easily. So I would say it took me 6 months from the time I started to having it available to the public. It was about 6 months.
In the book itself, would you say there's like a couple things in general that like if you had to highlight, for people listening to this so that are like interested in your book, like, what are some of like the key takeaways of like what are, even if you just give like one or two examples of like, what are some of like the biggest reasons that people quit or biggest ways that you can get a manager to get someone to stay?
Well, my favorite one is number 101, and it's about what I call performance punishment. It's when you have a really great employee and they're very capable. They always come through for you. You can give them a project and it's in good hands, right? They're going to do a great job. At first, that can be it feels rewarding to somebody. Like, hey, my boss really believes in me. They're giving me all this work. This is great. But after a while, when you're the point person and you're getting all the work, and then you have some people who maybe aren't stepping up as much, it starts to feel punishing. It's like you're getting punished for being a great employee. So number one, it's like, don't burn people out. You have a great employee, you have to spread the work evenly amongst the team. And even if somebody is slacking, I mean, you need to address, right, the poor performance on your team and not burn out your best performer. Another one is people just want to be heard. You know, they want somebody to listen to them. One of the things that I hear a lot is that when employees ask for help, they just feel like it's, you know, they're whining or they're complaining. But it's really rare for people to ask for help that really don't need help. So I would say for leaders to really pay attention when you have an employee coming to your office, they really want to usually do a great job for you. And so if they're asking for additional assistance or something to help them succeed, try to figure it out for them.
I'm curious in terms of like also kind of bringing into like a real world example for people, and I don't know if you have an answer to this question or not, but is there like a specific organization or a specific like, executive leader or a company that you've found has like done really well in terms of like being able to retain their employees with the way that they, employ tactics?
I have to say, I used to work for American Express, and they were incredible. They were incredible. They were an organization that I feel was doing organizational development work before it was even a known position in organizations. So they were really very focused on their employees, and they had lots of reward and recognition programs, and they were very supportive with tuition reimbursements and helping people achieve their goals in terms of education. And yeah, I just thought that they did a really, really good job at that. And I believe they've even won these Malcolm Baldrige Quality Awards that come out from the president's office. And it's for organizations that are showing best practices, right, and leadership. So I would say they have done a great job. And I know that they continue to be known for that.
No, that's great. And I know earlier you mentioned about how, so much has changed post COVID as well. Curious, did you write the book pre or post COVID?
I wrote the book pre COVID, but it took on a whole new meaning post COVID. I mean, it's so interesting. I saw book sales really kind of skyrocket during and after the pandemic. It's that I think people just kind of, what I say, the importance of pausing. It was a forced pause on all of us, right, in the United States and all over the world to kind of like shelter in place, stay at home. It's sort of like you were forced to kind of stop for a period of time. And we weren't able to go out and do our normal everyday things that may be distracting us from what we're really feeling or dealing with, right, in our personal, professional lives. And so I call it the power of pausing. I think people just really kind of reset and identified what was really important to them. And if they were working at a job that was really challenging or unhappy for them, they figured out a way to get out of that, that wasn't as important to keep that paycheck in an organization or a job they really didn't like. So I think, sort of the whole self care, happiness, family really took precedence.
And if you had written this book post COVID, would it have been similar? Would it have been different? Would you have had additions to it because things had changed a lot? Or how do you think about that?
I think it still applies even post COVID. I still see it now. Even it's the same kind of things that are coming up even now post COVID that I just don't feel seen. I don't feel heard. I don't feel recognized for my contribution. All of those things that are just still consistent in terms of why people are quitting. And it's where leaders still need to focus, right?
Yeah, and I'm curious in terms of, a lot of this debate has really like sparked up with, thinking about like return to office and remote work, hybrid work. I'm curious how, especially as you're dealing with leaders and organizations, how do you see this playing out? And do you have like opinions strongly one way or another?
Yeah. Yeah, I do have opinions strongly. I think that I I think the organizations that really were continued to be successful during the whole pandemic were the organizations that really adapted to the working remotely situation and embraced that and didn't fight it with employees. I think it's very difficult now to ask employees to come back 100% full time into the office. I mean, I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, and if you go down Market Street, there is vacant buildings after vacant buildings, office buildings, where they used to be full, right? And now I think organizations have seen that people can flourish and work from home, that people like that. Some people like that. Some people it's still challenging for. I think that if you offer a hybrid model where people can choose to come in or they can work from home, you're going to have a much more satisfied workforce.
Obviously that debate gets like a lot of the attention, but as you're working with the leaders and organizations as well, like what are some of the other like ones that are like popping up just as much? Are you seeing kind of like a frequency of like a lot of like similar types of topics that are coming up over and over again?
A big one that I'm hearing a lot about is just workload in general, that people feel very overloaded, that a lot of people left, a lot of people retired during the pandemic that were able to retire from working. And so that left, a considerable knowledge drain and a decrease in the amount of people working in organizations. So the people that were left had to take on more responsibilities. So I'm hearing a lot about that people just have generally felt kind of burned out really since the pandemic hit, and taking on additional workloads. And then, it's difficult to hire and retain people still right now.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I'd love to kind of go back to or focus kind of on your personal journey like throughout your career. And I'm curious, like, have you ever quit before? Any roles that you have had, and kind of like how did that shape kind
Yeah.
of how you think about your work today as well?
Yeah. I actually, I have worked for some great organizations, like I mentioned about American Express, and I have worked for some very challenging organizations. In 2019, 1920, the pandemic hit, around the end of 19, I think. I was working for a very, very challenging organization. I felt like I was in a really toxic environment. It was very unhealthy for me. But I am a person who I think about, persevering and pushing through all of that. And, I'm still going to get the job done, even though this is really a toxic environment. And I did that for about 3 years. And in 2019, this was before the pandemic hit, I was sitting at my desk one day and I thought, what am I doing? I've written this book, Why People Quit Their Jobs. I'm experiencing about half of the things I have in that book right here, right now. And why am I doing this to myself? And I was getting lots of calls from people trying to steal me away, right? And have me come work for them. So I called my husband and I said, hey, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I know I don't have another job right now, but I've got all these people asking me to come work for them. And I feel burned out. I just want to take a break, heal. I use that word heal. It was actually like I was feeling sick from being in the environment. And in the organizational development world, we do have a term called sick organizations. There is something that when organizations aren't functioning well, it's hard for staff to feel healthy in those environments too. I made the great decision that, I was going to leave and not have another job. I was going to take like a month or two off. And then I was just going to go right back in. Somebody was going to swoop me up and just start working again. Little did I know there was something out there looming, the pandemic, and I quit. And 3 weeks later, the pandemic hit. And I was unemployed for 2 years during that time. It was scary. It was challenging. It impacted my life in every way imaginable. My self-esteem, financially, my retirement picture, everything. I could never have imagined that I was going to be unemployed for 2 years and that the world was going to be experiencing this. Given all of that and how traumatic that really was for me, there were so many good things that came out of that and lessons that I learned. And I did start my own consulting business during that time. I did work doing the consulting work. Although it was challenging, it was a challenging time to start a business. But I learned so much about myself. I would say it's always better to leave a job knowing you have another job to not put yourself in that financial risk. But I really, at the time, Dave, I didn't think that I was doing that. I had a savings account. I thought, first time in my whole entire career, I can take 6 weeks off and give back to myself. And my husband was so supportive of that too. And then the rug was, pulled out from under my feet. But I learned about resiliency and perseverance. I learned a lot about what drives me and in my work. And it has helped me become a better coach and a leader. I feel like I have more empathy because I went through that when someone comes to me and talks to me about a difficult, challenging time they're having, I can really understand what that feels like. Yeah. In many ways, it was challenging and very difficult, and then also a gift.
It's just I think so much with quitting too is that at the end of the day it's always inherently risky. Whether you're quitting to go to another job, you don't know what that
Right.
organization's like, or if you're quitting to start your own business, it's like everything's inherently risky in general. But you look at all the layoffs now, and sometimes like staying in the same position is inherently risky. So it's like you can't control everything, and it's focusing on kind of what is important to you.
Yes. And as I said, I mean, I really did. I was having, really, I felt like I felt ill all the time. And that's no way, I mean, you do manifest, right? It's like something will declare itself when you're under that much stress and toxicity in an environment, is that, whether it's through headaches or you're just getting more colds, flu, it'll be declared that hey, this isn't working. Something really isn't working. Why this is happening?
I'm curious in terms of I know you've worked with a lot of people in terms of like understanding why they quit and like kind of what's important to them. Something I'm always curious about is how people think about priorities for, you know, picking a job that works for them, and I think some people value flexibility, some people value remote work life balance, money, there's so many like different things. So, have your priorities changed over time throughout your career, or have you been pretty consistent on like what you value most out of a job?
My priorities have changed definitely. And I will say, because the job that I left was a very lucrative job for me in terms of, retirement benefit and the pay that I was receiving. And I gave that all up just for, I just wanted peace. I wanted sanity back in my life. And I will say the draw of income, high paying jobs is very powerful, but it's very true that it is truly a short term motivator. I would rather make less money and be incredibly happy in my job and have time, free space in my brain to be creative and do other things that interest me. It's like you mentioned about other side hustles or other projects, or just being creative in general, and just having that time to do that, because otherwise you don't have any space in your brain when you're dealing with so much stress to bring anything else into your life.
For a lot of our listeners out there have either recently quit or thinking about quitting, I know you've, talked to a lot of people that have and seen it a lot, and then you yourself has as well. What's a piece of advice that you wish you were given, or, that you think is like most impactful for, kind of people thinking about following a similar path?
Mm-hmm. I think before quitting, if you're needing help, I did ask for help, and that was one of the reasons why I quit. Also, it's just I wasn't getting any response to my requests for help. I would say to have a plan. Don't quit when you're angry. Don't. I didn't quit when I was angry, but I was feeling very hurt. Right, there was an emotional piece to this. Yeah, to have a plan, to really sit down and think about your finances and how long you can go without maybe having another job or pulling in income right away. If you're starting your own business, how much time do you have before it's really going to start hurting if you don't get some type of income going? And if you have a partner, to talk it over with your partner. You need that support and in your life, whether it's with a spouse or friends, to really talk it over with somebody and make sure that people are there for you. It's going to be challenging, but I say follow your dreams. I mean, you got to follow your dreams. We do. We've got this one life to live, and you deserve to be happy. And if you're not happy, seek out what makes you happy and go for it. And I think a lot of times, especially if we've paid for education, right? Spent our time getting these college degrees. I have a friend, for example, who always wanted to be an artist, but felt very pressured about staying in the business world. Like, what was she going to do? Give up all of that? And she's got a college degree and she wants to go be an artist. She finally did it. It's the best thing she ever did. She's so incredibly happy. I would say to also carve out time and to find those moments of happiness, the things that really drive you, that give back to you, while you're still working, to make space for that until you can get out of your negative situation.
No, that's great, and something we ask every guest is we try to focus on not too short term, but not too long term, but like really over a 3 to 5 year period. What are you most excited about? It could be business wise, it could be a side venture, it could be personal. Like, is there something that gets you like super excited over the next 3 to 5 year window?
Yes. So many things. I mean, I'm so passionate about the work that I do. I think continuing to help people, I think I really want to grow my coaching side of my business. I'd love to do that. I think I have another book in me that I want to write, and I want to pursue that. Yeah, I think it's just living every day to the fullest, being very much more aware and conscious of what I'm selecting to do each day in my life. I'm, uh, I feel that's a gift that the pandemic gave me, is when I wake up in the morning, even if I feel like I'm going to maybe encounter some negative individuals or a challenging situation, I'm just happy. I'm happy to be here. I'm going to go in with a great attitude, and I am going to try not to let someone else's negativity impact my overall happiness for the day. But and I feel like I'm never really going to be retired, Dave. I just have a lot of interests in a lot of areas. And people, there used to be a term people used to say, oh, people are flaky who can't, like, you know, just focus on one area that they want to work in. Or I say I'm just an eclectic person with a lot of interests, and I I just want to, yeah, I want to help people be happier, feel that they've achieved their goals. I want to be a part of that for them.
That's perfect. And I know, you obviously have your book and you have your coaching services. We're going to include links to everything down there. But do you want to give everyone just like quick elevator pitch about, everything you have going on and then the best way to find you?
Sure. So I'm Barb Otis. You can check out my website at iquit.net. And it's all about the books out there, and you can purchase it from the website or on Amazon. And you can connect with me there, like you said, for services. And I'm here to help you. That's what I'm here to do. I'm here to help you achieve your goals, your dreams. I want to make organizations better places for people to work. If they have to work there, if they have to go in and work there, I want it to be the best environment it can be for people. Nobody should ever have to walk in their job, sit down at their desk and say, I don't want to be here. I hate being here. It's a horrible environment. If that's going on, either the organization needs to change, they need to change, or both, there needs to be something happening there.
No, that's great. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm
Yeah.
excited to see where you take it next, and appreciate your time.
Thank you. It's been great. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for listening. It really means a lot to us. We want to hear from you as we keep growing. Please reach out on whyquit.co if you have any feedback or potential guests. A special thanks to Chris Dole for the music. Please check out his newest album, Here's to You, on Spotify. Thank you, and we will be back next week with another episode.